Welcome back to State of the Union. We continue our conversation now with the White House Budget Director, Peter Orszag. I want to get to the specifics in a second, but there's a huge spending bill. Got held up in the Senate a little bit, but expect to make it to the White House by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. The president has said he would sign it. It is full, maybe 8,000, 9,000 of these so-called earmarks. Many of them, people would say, pork barrel spending. I'll get to the specifics in a second. But the central premise of the Obama campaign, yes or no, was to change the way Washington does business.
Look, the earmarks have come down significantly, 75%.
That's not an answer to the question. The central premise of the Obama campaign.
I understand. Let me just say, look, we are like, this is like your relief pitcher coming into the ninth inning and, you know, wanting to redo the whole game. Next year, we will be the starting pitcher, and the game is going to be completely different. If you look at what we have done, for example, in the Recovery Act, no earmarks. When we are in office and we're working with the Congress to write those appropriations bills, we are going to be much more transparent. We're going to be moving towards the vision the president put forward. But right now, again, we're a relief pitcher in the ninth inning. Let's get this done, move on to the business of attacking the problems that the economy faces and investing in education, healthcare, and energy.
Well, you say move on, but the American people don't like some of this. I want to show some of what's in this bill. There is $1.7 million for pig odor research in Iowa. $819,000 for catfish genetics research in Alabama, almost $200,000 for the Buffalo Bill Historical Center in Cody, Wyoming, $238,000 for deep sea voyaging program for Hawaiian youth, $209,000 for blueberry production in Georgia. Let's assume for the sake of this conversation, they're all worthy projects. At this moment in time, when 651,000 Americans lost their jobs last month, unemployment is as high as it's been since 1983. Should federal dollars be going to those projects at this moment in time?
Look, would we have written this thing differently? Absolutely. But we face a basic choice here, which is this was negotiated last fall. It's been baked in. It includes some important initiatives. For example, money to fight healthcare fraud, funding for education, Pell Grants, funding for healthcare. So we face a basic question. Is it uglier than we'd like? Yes. But again, this was negotiated last year. We think we should just move on. When we are engaged in the fiscal year 2010 appropriations process, it's going to look a lot different.
We'll hold you to that promise, but I want you to listen to candidate Obama. This was one of the central premises of his candidacy. The reason he said he was unique among the presidential candidates was that he had not been here long enough to be poisoned by Washington. Let's listen.
We're not going to change anything if we don't change how business is done in Washington. That's one of the reasons that I decided to get in this race in the first place.
Now, he didn't say, I'll start in 6 months. He became president on January 20th. I understand the political argument. You have so many balls in play. Yeah, you want to save some chits down the road. But he could get some of this out of here if he just went to the Rose Garden and looked the American people in the eye and said, I'm sorry, you have to take some of these things out. Americans are facing incredibly tough choices. This cannot happen.
And it will not happen when the president has the full legislative and appropriations process in place. Look at what happened under the Recovery Act, where the president led and there were 0 earmarks. That is what we are going to fulfill the president's vision here, making earmarks much more transparent. But again, I want to come back. It's like we are stepping in the ninth inning. You can't just redo the whole game.
Sometimes a pitcher comes in the ninth inning and changes the game. Changes the game.
But you can't, you know, change the rules of the game and go back to the earlier innings.
You can change the dynamics of the game, though, Peter. You can.
I'm going to come back and just say again, if you look at where the Congress is, this was negotiated between the House and Senate. Would we like to get the earmarks down further? Yes. Would we like to make them more transparent? Yes. Will that happen in the future? Yes. We've been in office less than 8 weeks. This was negotiated before we came into office. Our view is, rather than, you know, Washington is rife with, you know, we need a little less talk and a lot more action. We need to get this out of the way and move on to serious business that will include next year, when we are in charge, when we are, you know, when you can hold us responsible, a much different ballgame.
Well, I'm not sure people who voted for Barack Obama or against would say we can't hold you responsible for the first lead up in the administration. Let me try the analogy this way. If I ran for mayor on an anti-crime platform, and there was a gang that was out there robbing banks, do you think I could look the people of my city in the eye and say, well, the gang robbing the banks started that last year. I'll get any new gangs that come in this year. You say it's the ninth inning, but you're responsible for what goes on in the country. He could stop some of this.
I don't think that that's correct. I think at this point, given where we are in the process, we either need to sign this legislation, even though there's lots of stuff in there that we may not support, or we have to forego, you know, those key investments in combating healthcare fraud, in education, in energy. This, again, I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but this was negotiated before we came into office, and we don't think it's possible to step in and dramatically change it.
We'll continue this conversation another time, but we're about to have the #2 House Republican who will come in and join our conversation. Yeah. And they have looked at this, the Republican Party, and they don't like it. They say it raises taxes. They say it won't create jobs. It won't accomplish many of the goals you say it will. Let me, in closing, give you an opportunity to speak to our next guest, the #2 House Republican, Eric Cantor. Respond to the Republican criticism of this budget, or just...
Well, I guess I would say, look, we've been down a path that has not been working. We're proposing a change in course, and with regard to the criticisms, it's almost like, as Ronald Reagan said, there they go again. Let's take a look at their alternative. This week, the senior Republican on the House Budget Committee published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal suggesting their plan. First, lots of details are missing, but what details we have are troubling. Massive tax cuts, $3 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. A Medicare system in which when you turn 65, you're given a check for 80% or less of the cost of health care, and then you're on your own. And then with regard to Social Security, privatization, putting your Social Security money in the stock market. I'm not making this stuff up. But I would urge you to invite the Republicans on this show and ask for their specifics and then compare them head to head, because we are proposing a change in course in which we are not only fiscally responsible, but we're investing in education, we're investing in energy, and we're investing in healthcare.
We will ask those questions. Peter Orszag, the Budget Director, thank you for joining us this morning. And as Peter's just noting, not everyone thinks the Obama team is on the right track to boost the economy. A leading member of the Republican Party says there are giant flaws in the president's plan. Up next. And later, paying for health care or putting food on the table. We'll take you to North Carolina, where a bleak job market is leading to some very tough choices.